Welcome to the screencast that will cover the graphical user interface content for the subject EG1002. So graphical user interfaces are the interfaces that we are typically using with computers and smartphones and most modern devices. What it is there's a series of pictures that are displayed to screen, and you can interact with these pictures, and that's how you achieve whatever you want to achieve with that device. So we'll be showing you how to make your own for MATLAB. But before I get into that, first there's just a couple of concepts that we've covered previously that I'd just like to reiterate because they're very important for the creation of graphical user interfaces. So the first one that I'll go through is scope, in particular function scope. So function scope is effectively what a function can see and can't see. So I've got this workspace over here which can contain certain variables, so I'll say a equals 10. Now if I create some function in my editor and operated inside of this function will generate its own workspace with its own unique set of variables. So it will no longer be able to see this variable a that we've created in our main workspace, and we'd be able to create our own version of a inside. Just save this. So we'll create our own version of a inside, and our function runs 5 is assigned to a, but because it's not the same workspace, they have a different value for a. Where this starts to get a little bit more complicated is where we have the situation of having a subfunction. So extending on what we were talking about a couple of seconds ago, if I called another function from inside of this function, it would not be able to see this version of a, which is just part of the idea behind function scope. It can only see a certain amount of variables. But if we declare a function inside of a function, so we make our own subfunction, inside of this subfunction you can actually affect the variables in the main function. So I can increase the value of a inside of my main function. So a is equal to a plus 5. And as you just saw, that variable turned a shade of blue, which means that it's no longer unique to that workspace and is actually part of the workspace above it. This is something that's very handy because if you're declaring a lot of functions that won't be used in any other program, you can call them as subfunctions and you won't need to explicitly pass these variables to it. So just showing you that this is actually affecting this value of a, will display a without doing anything. We will call my subfunc, and then we'll display a again. So in our main function we haven't actually changed the value of a, we've just done it in this subfunction. So running this, starts at 5, goes to 10, which is what we expected. So that's function scope. Now if we moved this function outside of our main loop, it's now no longer a subfunction, it's just one file that contains multiple functions. So if we run this, we get 5 and undefined functional variable a, which happens in this line because it doesn't know what the value of a is. So function scope is just something that we need to keep aware of us, because we'll have to take advantage of it when we're making graphical user interfaces. So I'll save that and make a new one. The next thing that I would like to talk about quickly is handles. So you've probably heard of handles a fair bit in the subject now, or at least heard the word once before. Handles are a unique identifier to certain objects. The most common objects are graphical user interface objects, which include things like figures and plots. So if I say a is equal to figure, a new figure opens up, and what gets returned is actually a handle to this object. So this figure 2 is the one that we're looking at, and that has a handle of 2. So just close that one that was open. That one. So what we can do with this handle is now affect that object that we had before. So we use this using the get and set functions. So get a, which is not working for me because I've closed the object. So the object, I closed that window before, so silly me, I can't actually change anything in it. So if I reopen it, a equals figure. Once again, we get figure coming up again, and I use get of a. We get all the properties that define what is unique about this figure window. So since this isn't a screencast directly on this just yet, I won't go through these, but be aware that a handle is the unique identifier that MATLAB will use to identify graphical user interface objects as well as some other objects. So the final thing that I wanted to talk about was structures. So structures are a data type which allow us to use multiple data types and keep it all relatively neat. So if I say A is now equal to a struct, A is a 1x1 structure array with no fields. What we can then do is say A dot I variable 1 is equal to 5, and A now has one value in it called myVal1, which has the value of 5. Now we can keep adding different variables to it. So my string is equal to some string, and once again we can look at it, and we've got two different data types within the same structure. So it's not really anything that you can't do by just having many variables, but what this does is let us keep all our variables in one place fairly neatly, which will be important with graphical user interfaces when we do need to pass around some variables, but we don't want to have a function definition line which has, say, 10, 15 inputs. So that covers all the revision stuff I wanted to go over quickly, and I'll see you in the next video.